some lives lost, which had some bearing with such, pandemic. The challenge we have today is that perhaps we could have avoided the gravity of it as we have it today. When this thing started, you had the NDC and civil society organizations and those with the expertise of reading and understanding such pandemic and how it could be prevented sent the signals to the Mr. Nanado's government at the time, yet they never heeded. It became a political gameplay, and they felt that once they listened to the concerns of the NDC, regardless what other non-partisan institutions were making, it was virtually going to be submitting or submissive to the NDC whims and caprices. And for me, that was the danger. It is also a fact that contact tracing and testing is the only means by which you will be able to determine the number of people who have been infected by the virus. You cannot, under any circumstance, tell for certain the number of people who have been infected without doing the test, because it is not a sickness per se, but it has other consequences. Now, if you live in a country that went in for several millions of dollars loans, went in to get $1 billion from the IMF using the COVID as a justification, went to the World Bank, about $150 million. You had other international organizations and institutions who supported financially. And in fact, philanthropists in this country, businessmen and institutions in this country also supported in millions of Ghana cedis, just to see how best we can collectively galvanize forces as a people to overcome this. Now, when all these donations were done, when all this contractual agreement or loans were gotten by our government, all in the name of COVID, the question is, have we been able to do what we expected to do? The purpose for which those contributions were made, the purpose for which those loans were actually gotten, have we been able to do that? So now, as we sit today, no one can say for certain how much was spent in fighting COVID. No one. In fact, it is estimated around 17 billion Ghana cedis as to the amount of money government spent in the fight against COVID. Now, how long did they do the testing? How long did they do the contact tracing? And officially from government, when they stopped the testing and the contact tracing, they used money as a justification. Of course, there was a lockdown, and the lockdown also came with the consequences. The question then is, has anybody been able to account to the people of this country the monies that were gotten and how those monies were expended? As we sit today, nobody in this country knows, not even Parliament. When we raise the issue, the argument they make is that the Auditor General is doing its work, and as and when the work is done, it will be submitted to Parliament. We don't even just need Auditor General to tell us. People who are given the mandate to govern owes the people who give them the mandate that absolute responsibility to account to them as and when such accountability is needed. The people of this country are simply asking questions. That when you have a communicator of a government, and in fact, who represents an institution appointed by this government, come out to say that they spend about 54 million Ghana cedis, I guess, in the provision of food that was widely condemned not to be sufficient and not to be appropriate for human beings to eat. We all saw what happened. And mind you, the lockdown was not the entire country. The food distribution was not done in the entire areas that were locked down. We all know that the distribution was supposed to be done around Circle, and some was done in Kumasi and other designated areas. We also do know that there were other people, private individuals and organizations who supported in giving these foods to people who needed them. And we all know the complaints that came with regards to the quality of food that was given to the people who so needed them at the time. How long? 2 weeks, 3 weeks lockdown. The distribution never spanned the entire period of the lockdown. Yet when you have an appointee of this government who comes out publicly to say that they were spending about 2 million Ghana cedis a day for this, now people raise eyebrows. For me, that even should warrant the proper accountability so that we can put to rest all the suspicions and allegations that people have with regards to the monies that were. In fact, monies that were sought by President Mahama through the stabilization fund, government dipped its filthy hands into that fund to take that money, and the monies could only be expended for political expediency. We do know that during the 2020 elections, monies that were meant for COVID, those monies were given to NPP parliamentary candidates, which they use in various constituencies around this country. If they think that they never use those monies for campaign, then they should come out and account to us. Loans that were supposed, they had what they call the COVID Elevation Fund. Those COVID Elevation Funds, very clearly, were monies that were used to distribute to people to vote MPP candidates. Tamale Center was a classical example. The MPP candidate had the money for wherever he was getting it, and they used the minister for special something. There was this minister for the minister they appointed from Northern Region, the one who was with the graphic corporation. Business development, and he came to Tamale, gathered people, and several thousands of Ghana cedis were given to people. And at the forum that the monies were given to people, they were asked to do the needful by voting for the MPP candidate and MPP candidates in Northern. And this was something they did across the country. So I think that there is the need for such proper accountability to be done. But trust me, this government won't do that accountability. Again, as we sit today, when people warned, and the president himself gave directives that, and remember Parliament passed the CI, making it prohibited for anybody to violate the protocols governing the COVID. Some people were jailed, including pastors, because they were deemed to have violated the protocols, that came with the COVID-19. Who are the biggest violators of COVID? Today, Sandbox, the wife of Nana Asante Bediatu, they are still operating. And this country, everybody knows they are still operating. Even at the time when, I don't know, when the protocols with regards to hotels and beaches have suspended. But they have been operating. They operated during the Christmas, during the New Year, and they have still been operating. Even in the eyes, up to now, they are still operating. Because it is owned by a wife to the secretary of the president. So they have the right to operate. I remember I had a program in a sister station, and I raised the issue about responsibility. That when Nana Asante Bediatu had his wedding reception, in which the president, the vice president, and their spouses attended, many people there never observed the protocols. They didn't have nose masks, nothing. When I raised the issue, you had a journalist who said, but the NDC also did the same. Even with peddling falsehood, that throughout our campaign, that's what we did. It tells you how low some of the journalistic practice in this country have become. Look, people who have the authority, the mandate to put behind bars those who violate such protocols, they have the biggest responsibility. I have a contribution I can make as a member of parliament. A contribution I have been making, sensitizing people in my constituency through my meager resources, getting this, nose masks and others for people. But how far can I go? I cannot go, the NDC can't go and contract a loan to fight COVID. The NDC doesn't have the authority to use the name of this country and the people of this country to get any loan anywhere to fight COVID. The NDC can't dip its hands into the kitty of this state to fight COVID. Everything His Excellency President Mahama did and the NDC did was a private mobilization of resources to assist in the fight against COVID-19. So whatever we do individually and as political parties is just assisting the effort of government, who have the absolute responsibility to do that. Now, if the same government is seen violating those protocols, disregarding what is supposed to be done, Now, why will you then turn around and say the NDC also did that? Assuming without admitting that the NDC did that, must you compare the NDC, which doesn't have the power, the authority, or any NDC member, to those who have been taxed with the responsibility? Our taxes are sent to them. It is my tax and your tax that takes care of Mr. Nanado, the spouse, and everybody, including the minister. So we have a moral duty to make such demands. And that is why sometimes it hurts. When you raise that issue, they say that, then what have you done? We have been doing our bit. We have been contributing. Anytime I have the opportunity to go to my constituency, I am sure that some of these things are done, and they are done very well. At least the little resources. But how far can I go? Here comes again the airport, and certainly when the Minister for Health designate was asked, and now he was outrightly lying to the people of this country. So the figures that have been brandished about by this government can certainly not be accurate figures. How do you know figures when you are not doing testing? How? When you are not doing testing? I was alarmed when a friend of mine, a medical doctor in Tamale, told me, I was in Tamale less than 3 weeks ago, that they did 100 tests. And out of the 100 testing that was done, over 40 tested positive. 40! Even common sensitization and education, this government cannot do. So why did they go in for such loans? Why did they dip their hands into the stabilization fund, all in the name of fighting COVID? Why? At the airport, people were made fraudulently to pay $150. Do you know the minimum traffic at the airport a day is over 2,000? Do you know? Now, let's assume it's even 2,000. Multiply 2,000 by $150. It will give you $300,000 a day. Multiply $300,000 by 30, that gives you $9 million a month. They started since August. How much have they been able to cost? So every single month, $9 million. They got a Nigerian company which credibility nobody can vouch for. They open an offshore account. The monies are taken Sunday, and they have gotten another Nigerian bank that is taxed with the responsibility to collect this money. The young men and women they have recruited to take that money, they take less than 1,000 Ghana cedis a month. Degree holders, regardless the consequences, because people desperately are looking for jobs. Nobody is asking this question. The minister designate himself admitted before the appointment committee that yes, they were operating fraudulently because they never had the license to do so. Now, if they never had the license to do so, who gave them that authority to engage in such fraud? When you had a doctor, I guess from Noguchi, who said even the testing that was done at the airport could not be described and could not be deemed to be, if you like, proper test for COVID, considering the limited time within which the testing was done. And he said that such testing could cost only $15 to $25. What happened? Quickly they came out with another statement trying to rubbish that independent statement the person made. So that is the state of our country. That you have institutions that are completely compromised, that any time government zigs, they zag. They see nothing wrong because it is Mr. Nanado, who is an emperor, a king, who is governing this country, that when you struggle sometimes to see semblance of democracy and you find none. Sometimes you wake up knocking at shuttered and barred doors to see whether you find semblance of a democracy. So to speak, you wouldn't find any. So this minimum of $9 million that this government takes for months, where is that money? Why is it that, look, if the state could have asked Noguchi, or the state could have asked Kulibi or any of the health institutions to take that responsibility of charging people $150 for that bogus testing done at the airport. And we know that, yes, you are exploiting people and exploiting the people of this country for the purposes of continuing with the testing, for the purposes of continuing with the contact tracing. This government was not interested in that. They were interested in monies that they were going to make. Tell me who is sharing the money with that Nigerian company. Tell me. So with what authority were they operating at the airport when the minister at the time himself said he wasn't aware and said that from August when they were operating they didn't have license? and that he ensured that they were given license. It is not about whether they had license or not. The amount of money they have taken. Someone should be accounting for those monies. Which offshore accounts are they putting the money? What are they using the money for? Is the money being used to improve our health facilities at the very time when people are still lying on the ground? Pregnant women are lying on the ground. Look, I saw a picture of Boku Hospital. I was scandalized that you have pregnant women who are lying on the ground. Even Tamale Hospital, with the improvement and increasing the capacity, the number of beds done by the NDC under Prof. Mills and President Mahama, you still find these challenges. There are hospitals that have been abandoned. And any time this government is asked why they abandon those facilities provided by President Mahama, they quickly point to resources. This $9 million every month, or more than $9 million, because this estimate is done based on just 2,000 number of people who use our airport a day. Assuming without admitting that it's just the 2,000 people. The $9 million a month that they get, what do they use the money for? Couldn't they have used those monies to improve our health facilities? Multiply $9 million. Remember, they have been collecting this money about 8 months now, yes, or more. Since August, September, October, November, December, January, February. Okay, let's even say 5 months. 9 times 5 will give you what? Is it not 45? $45 million. Do you know what $45 million can do? Yet we have this challenge. Now come to Parliament. I was one of those who called and demanded that we needed to have shut down. To be very honest with you, we were all asked to do the testing. You remember the speaker at a point said the 60 members of Parliament haven't done the testing. He was going to start mentioning names of those. There were many MPs I spoke with who never trusted even the testing that was going to be done because of the story that came up that people were tested. You test and then they will tell you that we can change the results for you. Whatever the case is, all of us did the test. And if you were called, then you were tested positive. I know the first time they did, there were a few members of Parliament who had some in critical condition. Thank God that they are all very well now. Now, when they did the test again, we all did the test. I wasn't called, so presumably I wasn't positive. I went to the constituency to attend a funeral when I read in the news that about 15 members of Parliament had tested positive and about 53 staff. Do you know a week after that, it was about 150 something. It's about 100 now. Now, when I heard that news, I said, look, we are all in trouble. Even if you had one member of Parliament who tested positive and about 53 members of staff of Parliament tested positive, that was a looming danger. Because we work with this staff. We use the same lift. There isn't a specific lift that is supposed to be used by members of Parliament and those who are not members of Parliament. We mingle. Notes, letters, everything. Some of them may be secretaries to MP, some are clerks. So that was the time some of us said we needed to have done this. Now, if the Speaker in his wisdom, and I think that he did the needful by ensuring that through the consultations and discussions he had with leadership, they deemed it fit at the time to shut down Parliament for 3 weeks. Our kids are in school. Look, I have a 2-year, almost 3-year-old son. When you put the nose mask, they feel extremely uncomfortable. Yeah. By the time you realize it is taken off. Now, such kids are sent to school. And other kids of other parents are also brought to school. Can we? Was it so necessary or essential that we open schools? If we open schools using the need for kids to be in school as a justification, between that and the health needs of the people of this country, Sena, the numbers are several folds more than is being reported. And there's no doubt whatsoever about this, because you don't do testing. And if you don't do testing, how do you determine the numbers? So we have a looming danger. The last point I would make on this matter, Mr. Nanado told us that yes, we'll be getting the vaccine very soon. He gave a timeline. He said at the time that within 2 months' time. You have the minister designate for health who also said. I remember the type of vaccine he said we'll be getting is something that has been rubbish now, because there have been challenges. And in fact, South Africa is stopping. It's saying that they will no longer even use that particular type of vaccine because it is not resistance to the South African, you know, the new variant, the South African variant of COVID-19. I made a point on the floor in contributing to a statement that was made by a colleague that if the president is telling us that yes, we'll be getting the vaccine, have we done pre-test of the vaccine? We haven't developed the vaccine. We have no idea whatsoever how the vaccine was developed. We need to test the vaccine to those who are willing to volunteer. By now, we should have been certain this is the vaccine we are using. We want to do a test of that vaccine. It may have tremendous consequences. We haven't done that. The countries who develop even the vaccine, those countries themselves have done repeated testing, and some have even changed the composition of the things they use in developing the vaccine, because when they did the testing, it had some repercussions. We haven't done that. There are a number of people who have been infected and killed in other jurisdictions because of their biological makeup, perhaps, and our biological makeup may not be the same. Now, we just want to buy a vaccine because it is being produced by America or Europe, bring the vaccine here to administer on the people of this country. When I made that call on the floor, we haven't had any response. And I think that for me, that is even more dangerous. That there must be a test. Let some people who are willing to volunteer. Our scientists should be able to assess the vaccine we are using to find out whether it will be safe for them to administer the vaccine on the people of this country or not. We can't just go and buy a vaccine, bring the vaccine to administer, and they make those statements with political alacrity that yes, we are getting the vaccine. The president has assured. The Minister for Foreign Affairs designate also said same. You know, when she appeared before the appointment committee, you have the Minister for Health designate making the same statement. You know, we will vaunting that we'll get the president is committed. Is this president committed? Is Mr. Narado committed in fighting COVID? With all the corruption that engulfed the fight against corruption, the monies that have been gotten through the airport and the loans that this government used our name to go into, we have been told that yes, the president is paying for electricity and water bill for some selected consumers, as if it is just a favor. You use our name to go in for a loan that we and our kids will pay. Then you take a portion of that money to take care of water and electricity, and the other one you squander them with your political activists, use them for political expediency, and says, clap for me. And you have people who are saying that let's commend the government for doing that. Couldn't the government have done better? It is not about paying water bill, and the water doesn't even run, unfortunately. It is not about paying the water bill and light bill for some selected consumers. It is about fighting it to ensure that it doesn't come. It is about putting brakes to the spread of it, which is now a serious danger. That is what the people of this country are looking for. It is about doing proper accountability. The monies you have taken account. Let us know how much you have spent. The $9 million or more dollars you get at the airport, using our name, using the taxpayers, and you brought in your friends from Nigeria to do that. Tell us account to the people of this country how much you have collected so far and what you have used the money for. Yet you haven't done that. People are dying. The numbers are increasing. Look, you hear about a death, and when you find out how the person died, when they just explain, you know that it's COVID. Look, I've had people from Tamale who called. Then you say, oh, I have malaria. And you know, this time of the year, malaria is not common in northern Ghana. This time of the year. Yesterday, someone told me, I was talking to one of my colleagues, said, oh, I have malaria. I said, have you gone to test? And it's malaria. I said, no. I said, that was last week, do the testing. The person went, did the test, malaria negative. And I said, look, it could be COVID. Go to the hospital. Because malaria is not common. These times. In fact, in the north, malaria is very common during the rainy season, because that's the time you have a lot of. Many people are complaining. And you see, how many of them will go to the hospital? And these experiences are just experiences in Tamale. How about the rural areas? People may not go to hospital. So that is why I'm saying there's a looming danger. This government should be telling us the truth. The reason why they were unwilling to tell the people of this country the truth, because we were in an election year. and they valued the consequences of the elections than the lives of the people of this country. So they were not prepared to tell us the truth.
Okay.
You realize that the president pretentiously seemed to be telling us some truth now, telling us the numbers and the danger. Check all the statements that the president made in his addresses before the elections. He never hinted that there was any danger. He was only telling us that the necessary measures have been taken. Juxtapose that with the statements that he's making now that he was fraudulently declared the winner of the election by Jean Mensa. Juxtapose those statements with this. You realize that something is missing somewhere. You realize that he is not being honest. They are unwilling to tell us the truth. And for me, that is the most dangerous aspect of all the things we are doing. Until such a time, politicians and those mandated with the authority began telling the people the truth, we are all in danger. And that for me is extremely worrying.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Honorable Mutala is Member of Parliament for Tamale Central. I'll come to Jifa pretty shortly. But let me just say a very big thank you to Ahunto 92.3 FM. It is their platform that we are using here in Accra. If you're within Accra and you like to listen to us, the frequency is 92.3 FM. Tune in and you get to listen to us. We are also live on Benya and Cape FM, both in the central region. And a big thank you to Nyawasi Radio, all the way in Ketekrache. Let me do a couple of your messages. Lifetime Legacy says, good morning, Sena. So we're having, okay. Thank you very much for that message. Charles Thompson says, transparency doesn't exist in our beloved country. Lord have mercy. Where are we going as a country? Partisan policy is doing serious damage to Mother Ghana. Kujo Fiti just says, good morning to the crew, panelists, and cherished viewers and listeners of ALHAJI and ALHAJI. Positive change in Medina says, as the Supreme Court judges are just putting the national interest first in the performance of the constitutional duties, I hope the NDC members in Parliament and those on Appointments Committee will equally put the national interest first by doing the needful, by rejecting some of Akufo-Addo's nominees. Musa Abatua says, Sena, I'm concerned about the fact that people in authority are running away from accountability in respect of the testing that cost taxpayers $150 in KIA. Those responsible in the health sector who appeared for vetting claims unaware of the contract. All the nominees must be rejected with the exception of Honorable Osei Sambonso. This is what you get when Supreme Court affirmed decision for a public official to run away from cross-examination. Ghana is bleeding with corruption. Kwesi Okpata, thank you for watching all the way from London. Godwin is saying a good morning to us. NDC MPs are doing a great job. So it's true that GM arranged for ambulances by Health Minister. What a shame. Niaye says a good morning. Says the most informative talk show in the country. Good to be watching you again. Thank you. Ayu Farouk in Tamale says, indeed, it is disgusting and worrisome the way the election petition proceedings are going. Okay. Thank you very much. Rasmia Idrisu says, good morning. May the good Lord give you long life. Mr. Sena, please tell Mr. Pratt he's our motivator and teacher. May the good Lord protect, guide, and give him long life. Anefi Adams, a solid figure who is well respected by his constituents, Honorable Ibrahim Mutala Mohammed. May God bless you. Send that from Tamale Central. Said Adam says, this is what happens when the leadership of the country prioritize their selfish interests over national interests. Ghana, I'm afraid, is in serious trouble. James Akate is also watching us. Since having watched proceedings in election petition, I'm so convinced that many innocent persons have suffered injustice. Okay. Oh, thank you. Razak Mo is saying it's too much. 150 euros. Please, Nana can't rule the country. Ghanaians must know. It's actually $150. Zahara Abdul Hamid is just saying the best so far, Pan-African. Abbas Abdul Wahabo saying this MP is exceptional. He's not even talking about politics. This is real talk. Samuel Answer says NDC MPs on a vetting committee must not disappoint their followers on the days of vetting of Oslo Owusu and Kenneth Oyata. The disappointments are becoming too many. Daniela Kako is also joining us from Sumanya. Okay. Thank you. We have taken note. We'll take note of your concern. Jifa.
Sena, good morning. Good morning to Uncle Kwesi and my big brother here, Honorable Mutala. I really enjoy listening to him a lot. And I would say good morning to your viewers out there. It's been quite a long time I came on the show. And yes, we are in a very sensitive period. Everyone was expecting that by the end of 2020, we should be done with corona. But here lies the case that countries all over Africa and like the world are experiencing new and stronger variants of the COVID-19. That makes us know that the war is far from won. And so it is within this period that you actually feel the effects of all the choices, or should I say the decisions, that your government, respectively every country, made on behalf of their people. Whether they made good, if they made good decisions, it will probably be reflecting now. And our situation will rather be better than other countries. In the case of Ghana, it's worse. That is to say, it only reflects what bad decisions that were made during the first period of COVID-19 in 2020. There were a lot of us that were complaining, the NDC, civil society organizations, but at the time, people thought that it was political talk. In fact, many civil society organizations were accused of standing with a particular political party and therefore, motivating them to make such statements. But here we are today. I have been seated in Ghana here, and every time the Ghana Medical Association suggests something prior to time, the government does the opposite. The Ghana Medical Association of Ghana, they cannot be political for any reason. If they are, it wouldn't even be the entire association. They say something and government decides that they know better than the doctors, and they do the opposite. So now we are here, and Ghana Medical Association is once again saying close down schools. And let's not forget, they mentioned that it was not necessary to reopen schools, because at the time that we were reopening schools, it wasn't like the cases were dropping. We had now entered into its peak. The government, of course, had been relaxed about the entire protocols that we're supposed to observe during the election period. No, let me even start way before, during the registration period, when they just rubbished every advice given them by any medical association or whatever. And then they decided that no, the registration was far more important than anything. And we went with it. And my big brother mentioned something here about how they are in control of the numbers and figures. So at the time, what we only see is the updates that is given us. And then they look normal. And everyone was wondering, look at the mass registration. It wasn't just any registration, mass registration exercise that went on. Could it not have affected the COVID in any way? So the figures were massaged to the extent that the normal public, or should I say the normal person, was made to believe that, oh, it didn't have any effect at all. It was relaxed. People kept dying. Cases were not being reported. Sena, if you remember, at a period of about 3 months or 2 months, we didn't even see any cases. When the COVID started and cases were being reported daily through testing, you see updates on even social media, people's statuses. And after the registration, you could see that there was no update whatsoever. A deliberate attempt to make it look as if there was no effect. But of course, if you have experienced 1 or 2 deaths in your family or around your close friends, you know that this thing was still there and was killing people silently. I don't think I have seen anything more wicked than that. See, because we do not understand the gravity of it, we do not understand how serious it is, and probably we are experiencing it individually. We do not see the larger picture. That is why people may not understand how wicked that alone is. And then we ignore it. Election comes, we go through it. Christmas comes, we enjoy Christmas. And we have come now into a new year, January. And more than ever, now the virus has grown stronger, and it has turned into a new variant. And I hear in Ghana's cases, there are some who are not asymptomatic, but do not experience any obvious reactions at all. The only thing that a few deadly symptoms, like your urine turning reddish black, over a period of time, and not even having any relation to cough or any of the SARS symptoms. And these are all COVID. And in the heat of all this, let's say you've messed up so much. Let's go back, rushing back into how to protect our people. You say that we have to open schools for the children to attend. If I'm a parent, I wouldn't mind my child being in school. In fact, parents love their children being in school because you have to learn. It takes some stress off them, you understand? But this is a matter of life and death. When COVID started, we heard that it was only affecting the youth. Sorry, the older generation, not affecting the youth. Today, we give birth to babies. A day-old baby has been affected by COVID. 5-year-old child has COVID. 11-year-old child has COVID. 16-year-old child has COVID. Everyone is experiencing COVID. And let's look at the psychology of putting on masks. Sena, we are all adults. We have very matured brains and understand the seriousness of COVID. So we know how important it is to wear masks. What about the child? Even when we know about how important it is to wear masks, it becomes uncomfortable at certain stages. I mean, even in the process of eating, one thing I always realize that in the process of eating, it is very difficult to try to observe protocols whilst eating. So this is for adults. Imagine a child that has been left to go to school. A classroom of about 20 or more children with one teacher. And how uncomfortable it is because they do not even understand what COVID is. They do not understand why they have to be subjected with wearing something to cover their noses and their mouths. They are not matured enough to take care of themselves like that. We allow them to go to school in the name of they've been at home for long. My goodness, should they rather die and they not even have the opportunity to go to school at all? And you see, once again, you see, sometimes the government or the people just shuts down our institutions as if they are senseless, as if they do not have the intellect to make suggestions within their field. Because when you are doing something like this, in a serious, if we are supposed to be a serious country, every decision related to COVID should go hand in hand with the Ghana Medical Association of Ghana. They are doctors. They have the psychology of all these activities. It should be endorsed by them. The worst case scenario, if it cannot be endorsed by them at all because the government is the superior at all, we should be able to put their suggestions into consideration. They said no, they shouldn't go to school. It's not a matter of they've been at home for too long. They should not go to school. And you said no, schools are open. During the first week that schools got opened, I think 2 secondary schools recorded cases of about 5 students. There was another one that was 7 students that had COVID. What's the school? GIJ had a case about, I think, over 30 people that had been recorded as having COVID-19. Several universities, several primary and basic schools, and several secondary schools all over Ghana as we speak. And that alone is not as if we weren't expecting it. I mean, it is normal that you should think ahead and know that that was coming. There is no way that we can work with this than to draw them back home. Everyone should be within the protection of their family. The protocol should be strictly observed. And then cases should be, there should be a lot of tests, tracing, or the contact tracing. A lot of contact tracing should be done. But my big brother was saying once again, now the contact tracing is off the market. I had to go and do COVID-19 testing. You have to pay 500 Ghana cedis at Yahoo Clinic to be able to do a test. 500 Ghana cedis. And I'm just wondering, how many people can afford that in this country? In other hospitals that are even charging less, even if it's 300 Ghana cedis, how many people, Sena, how many people? If you look at people's salaries that they are taking, when we're mentioning those who are employed at the airport who are taking about 1,000 cedis or less, or just around that, taking 300 cedis or 500 cedis out of their salary to go and do one COVID-19 test, when the nation is supposed to do it for, when the government is supposed to do it for us. How do we do that? About 2 months ago, we had the Mortuary Workers Association coming out. Oh yes, coming out to state that from their observation, the government is not recording or communicating the right number of COVID cases. Because they are in their field, they know what it looks like when somebody has COVID. You understand? And they have communication with the hospital staff. And we all know a lot of people are dying. And we do not know whether it was COVID that killed them or not. Even if we know, how is the government coming up with that for over 400 cases? Is it 400 cases a week or a month without contact tracing? So that means that if the government is trying to be truthful at all, that means it is only when you have tested yourself or probably died and they have detected that there was COVID that killed you, that they write.
Or reported
that they report.
The hospital.
Those are the only ones, the ones that are reported to the hospital, that you have tested yourself, and then they would conclude that you have an active case of COVID, or probably you have died out of it and they have proven that you died out of COVID. Only reported cases at the hospital. What about the ones that haven't been reported yet? What about the sick ones that do not have access to testing and paying themselves? So it is false figures that we are getting. If you see the number of deaths again every day, and this is not as if I am conjuring anything. On a more serious note, if all of us see what has been going on within our family and friends scope, on social media, on our WhatsApp statuses, you see deaths after deaths after deaths within this period. Trust me, this is nothing like I've seen before. People die every day and people will continue to die. But the rate at which people are dying these days is so vast. There are a few families who do not say, who do not want to, tell everyone that this is why, or this is the cause of their loved one's death. Some also do say it. But a lot of people, you realize that there is something going on in the country. So at the end of the day, COVID is not being measured. There is nothing we are doing, and then you have the health minister who was adverting and said that they are not going to change anything about the steps that they took during the COVID period because it seemed to have worked. Can you imagine? The health minister during vetting said that all the steps that the government took, he and his ministry, together with the government, took during the COVID period to try to measure it and to try to curb the entire virus, they are going to continue with it because it worked. And I'm wondering, what do they have to show for it? What worked? Look at the high number of cases. Today we have that when we talk about this particular health minister who during a lockdown attended a party, attended a colleague's party, and it was a lockdown, there was nothing, but he thought that party, somebody who is supposed to set examples, somebody who has been charged to deal with this issue, thought that the party was more important, or should I say, was nothing to worry about. Attended a party with very little protocols observed. And then myself, I'll just be here and feel lenient about observing protocols. Of course, I would never do that, and I don't encourage anyone to do that. But you wonder where we are going, because even those charged with that power are not even taking it seriously. So I get really amazed that if at the end of the day, we have to think of how good all those measures were, and today we have nothing to show for it. We have high rise of cases, and everything is just being turned upside down. This one at Everton, I do not even think he needs to be brought back. And I really hope that people see through him and decide for us that we need somebody who is firmer, who is stricter. Today, the president announced since December, all pubs closed, all restaurants closed, and every single day, go around. I don't want to mention names, but go around Accra or just Abelempe area and look at the number of pubs that are open. Look at the number of restaurants that are open. It is so appalling to see the president talking and nothing being done about it. And I just want to add this issue that I really think that the pub and the restaurant issue is very important because, Sena, people go there to drink and to eat. You cannot drink with your nose mask on. You cannot eat with your nose mask on. It is very difficult. You would enter there, but it's there is one thing, I think it has been going around social media that the best attitude to pick up when you are wearing a nose mask is to make sure it stays on throughout. That is because forgetfulness is very frequent when you are with your nose mask. The moment you try to take it off for something, that is it. Before you realize, you forget and take a move or make an action, and then you may contract it somehow, take your hands close to your nose or your mouth, may shake somebody or something. So at the end of the day, we are just advised not to be taking it off. And in these restaurants and pubs, you have to particularly take it off. And it has to be allowed before you can eat or drink. So it is very difficult to observe protocols there. And it's very easy for you to contract or to even bring your hands close to your nose or your mouth or anything. So if we just say it, the president just sits on air and says it as it goes, and it doesn't reflect, or should I say, it is not being monitored. The police and the task forces that have been forced to do this are not doing anything at all. It's like, obviously, the president is losing or has always lost his grip on issues. Nothing is being done. Everyone is doing what they want. We heard that there were no weddings. Before we realized, Kojo and Paul Nkrumah came to mention that the weddings in churches are allowed, but reception is not allowed. And I'm saying, can we just be straightforward about what we are supposed to do at all? Can we be straightforward? Are we doing it or are we not? Social gatherings are the ones that are causing these things. Are we going on with social gatherings or not? I have several friends who had funerals this weekend. I'm just being truthful because we all want to stay alive. I have people who are having weddings and funerals, but everyone is confused because the directives are not even straight. Funerals that are supposed to take over just a maximum of 25 are now going to a maximum of 100. And people are doing their daily things. And we are left to just dive into misery, dive into the sickness, and the luckiest people are the asymptomatic people or people who have very strong immune systems that are able to fight this away. If not, people keep dying every day and it just doesn't add up. Sena, so at the end of the day, I just want to come to a conclusion where Ghanaians have to understand that the government has lost it, honestly, because this is the second opportunity that we are having to fight COVID. We messed up the first one entirely, and in starting to fight the second one, we are messing up entirely again. That is to say that this is bad governance, this is bad leadership, and that is just it, because several other countries are doing better. In the case where my senior brother mentioned the vaccination, this is common sense that a group of graduates from university will think that every vaccine should be tested. It shouldn't even be an argument. It should be a formality. If it is not tested and approved, it cannot come. So how are you going to invite hundreds and thousands of vaccines into Ghana when it hasn't been tested yet? What if there is a major problem and patients die out of this? Of course, probably because of the COVID-19, they may have been close to death anyway. But what if it is the vaccine or something in the vaccine that is going to cause their deaths? And these things are questions. These things are put on the table, and it's taking several months before it will be answered. Where are we going? What is happening? So if our children start dying in their numbers, is it a mass death, a strange mass death that is going to push the government to do this? Because at the end of the day, the path that we are doing is leading to a lockdown, and that just shouldn't be it. We should be able to curb it to a certain extent before. And we all know that Ghana cannot afford another lockdown. We've gone through a lot. My big brother was mentioning a bigger amount that I wanted to mention, $100 million. That is one particular loan that we took in to fight COVID. That thing has vanished. There is no trace of it. When I say no trace, because we cannot see what it did. No trace of the $100,000. That $100 million from the health minister. And now we are even expected to even go and borrow another $120 million, which is underway, which is coming. And we know how it will be spent. We know that they are going to conjure figures, methods of spending. No, seriously, because those who needed it never received it. They were telling us hot meal a day could spend, and they were saying that only the hot meal could take about 2 million Ghana cedis to prepare a day. hot meal, not even a pack of food that is going to survive a family for like about a week or a month. Hot meal. And you see the quality. People rejected them. You know the rice they call tujimi. Oh, honestly, you know, bad quality rice. Let me say bad quality rice with food like that of what they give to the school feeding program. And let me just add a school feeding program because the quality of their food is bad. That is what they were given, and they said 2 million Ghana cedis. When, of course, it was just Accra and some parts of Kumasi. And in honesty, even that hot meal didn't reach Kumasi. In honesty, the lockdown reached Kumasi, but even hot meals didn't reach Kumasi. Just some parts of Accra. And it wasn't even entirely every part. There were a lot of, it was just at the beginning of the campaign season. So there were a lot of members of parliament who were doing this from their pockets to support their constituencies. And we don't know where it's coming from. And at the end of the day, we are just using this opportunity to squander money after money after money after money. We calculate we have so much debt on our side, yet we get the opportunity to get money. And instead of strategizing well how to solve this, it is how to squander it. And all I have to say is that God is watching them, honestly, because this is the lives of people. From the day of registration, where they put the mass registration first before the lives of the people, to this very day, where we are still suffering by their decisions, making this wrongful decisions, neglecting the health and lives of Ghanaians, and going forward to loot from this and taking COVID as an opportunity to make more money. It is only God that I leave for them, because what could be more important than the lives of your citizens? What could be more important? We could go naked, we could be homeless and everything, but we should have life. So if the lives of your citizens does not matter, then I don't know what else matters. Now let's just conclude with applauding the Speaker of Parliament for closing down Parliament for a period of time, because it's a large place. Even though it's very spacious within the chamber, but then we all are, it's not it's not so spacious, but we all acknowledge that activities outside of the chamber contribute a very large to a very large extent, whether you contract COVID or not. And a lot has happened there. For that place, over 100 people are here now. It's even over 150 because the tests were still coming in. And for that place, obviously, as I said, he has shown that the lives of human beings matter. Because if they did not have strength, if they did not have health and life, how would they sit there and make our laws for us? It's not possible. So for all reasons, it is the job of the parliament is so important, but not more important than their lives. So we have closed it. And if they have been able to close it, why can't we close schools? Okay. Why can't we have our children back? I hope that the president really looks at the activities of the speaker, and maybe when he sees the way he behaves, or he just adjusts to his ideology or just copy it, probably he'll be able to make right decisions for us. But so far, it's been horrible, and it's so unfortunate, but this is what we have to live with.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
The Minister for Finance, the Minister for Finance designate, a lot of money is in that fund. That's what they claim. And he stated in the Business and Financial Times that he's going to use the money to set up a bank. Yes, the Minister for Finance, Ken Oforiatta, stated, if you read the Business and Finance Times, Business and Financial Times, BNFT, right? Yeah. I can't remember the date. I made this statement on the floor of Parliament, and I stated the date, I can't remember, that he is going to use that money in the COVID Alleviation Fund to establish a bank. After collapsing several banks, he now sees the need. When people are dying, when contact tracing is not being done, when hospitals are full, hospitals built by President Mahama, he thinks that he must use the money to set up a bank.
Thank you, comrade. Let me just do a couple of your messages. Dr. Percy has joined us. I'll be coming to him shortly, but let me just do a few of your messages before I go to Dr. Percy. Udeduje is saying, good morning. Last week, it was a soldier beating up a young man for not having a face mask. This week, it is a ticket officer man beating up for asking a soldier who was buying a ticket for a journey if he had a face mask. What is really going on in Ghana? Is it lawlessness or the order of the day? Tafai Nama here. says, Sena, we, the rank and file, have rejected Napo's apology because looking at his body language, he's not being sincere or shown any remorse for the unfounded lies and attacks on the credibility of President Mahama and Professor Jenana Opokwajima, and therefore we want him rejected immediately. You say Musa Batwa in Kumasi says, I'm concerned about the fact that people in authority are running away from accountability. Okay, I've read that message from Facebook, I believe, and so have I. Okay, A. Farouk says the COVID-19 cases of Ghana today is totally alarming. The government, instead of tackling the COVID-19 cases, they were busily fighting for power during the elections. Now, how won't cases rise? The government is simply using the COVID-19 money on family and friends group. This one is coming from Charles Cardinal Pokwasi. Says they have misappropriated the COVID fund to the detriment of the poor. We saw how it was used in this country discriminately. The government has no solution on this COVID matter since there is no money to share. If they hear the smell of money right now, they rush into lockdown because people will get side issues. Very interesting. So those are some of the messages I'm getting. I'll read some. I just got a message from mistaken in Sam. It says, I hope and pray the court will fairly grant the petitioner's application to reopen his case and to be able to subpoena Jean Mensah and account to Ghanaians for her inept and intransigent performance. After listening to some of the ministerial nominees by Nanado, I can say they don't have the men. In as much as I entreat Ghanaians take the COVID-19 protocol serious, it's crystal clear Nanado has failed Ghanaians woefully with the fight against COVID-19 by not conducting enough contact tracing. Doc, good morning.
Yes, good morning, Sena. It's clear that the COVID pandemic has put Ghana, indeed all societies, under severe stress. Now, if you were looking to design a stress test, you could not have done better than bringing this COVID matter. Now, it's showing up government, not just our government. It's showing up governments globally. It is telling us in many senses how unfit the current political economy that practically all nations operate. It's telling us how plainly unfit that model is for addressing our day-to-day concerns. It's a global issue. This government didn't invent that. Yet, as Ghanaians, we have to first address the matter from the perspective of Ghana. Okay? And the one thing that I think must guide us in trying to develop to develop an understanding of what it is that has gone on and is going on is the fact that from the very beginning, everything that was done in relation to COVID was done through the prism of our president, one, looking good, our president holding on to power, and he and his appointees creating at every turn opportunities to raid the public purse in pursuit of that agenda. That is what informed, first of all, the composition of the, would I call it the National Task Force? Okay? That's what informed the composition of the National Task Force. And this point has been made several times on this show. That as a country, if you look at the health establishment, they have developed systems over the years for dealing with health crises, whether it is cholera or malaria or polio. They have machinery that involves using the regular line health staff. For instance, when we roll out vaccinations for children under 5, they manage to get to every nook and cranny of this country. Mothers get the information and they bring their babies out. Well, they could say that this was an extraordinary situation, so it required extraordinary measures. But from the very beginning, from the composition of the National Task Force, the overriding concern was this preoccupation of our president. Looking good, retaining power. Very long ago, they gave up any real business of trying to address the pandemic. I believe they went for the strategy of herd immunity. They did not say so in so many words, but one could come to that conclusion when we heard, was it the Minister of Health, saying that they are tired, and that, I don't know whether it was he who said that, or the president who said that we should essentially each take care of ourselves. So any pretense, and really that's really the word. What we've had since then, what we have now, is a pretense that as public officials, they are addressing the problem. But they long ago gave up that responsibility. And we are reaping a bitter harvest as a result of that recklessness. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, I think maybe 3 weeks ago, we learned about the death of Mr. Pratt's brother, right? In the past, you heard about these things, and it was like distant. It was just one more statistic, so to speak. So it was distant, but now it's getting close. Now, this past week, I have lost a close relative to COVID. And everything, and I've been preoccupied in trying to get, but basically what happens is that the public or the state takes care of the body, but you bear the expenses. Essentially, that's what happens. Okay, so I've been a bit preoccupied this week in relation to this matter. So that I wasn't even able to pay much attention to the comedy that was going on in Parliament. Okay, but back to this subject. So now, from my own personal experience, I have no doubt that the picture that we are getting nationally is only a tip of the iceberg, as they say. And it looks to me that in every local authority, every municipality, every district, the basic business of government is that if someone dies, we take charge of the body. Relatives bear the expenses. But within that envelope, local authorities are free to do whatever they want to do. Set rates, set charges, some of them difficult to explain. But it's all locally determined. And there's nothing that tells me that even the data gets recorded and sent to a central base. Okay? Because you have a situation where you have private clinics, they are on their own. All you see on television is the action at public facilities. But there are many places where private health facilities are very active in this business. And there's nothing, I mean, from the little that I've been able to observe, I can say that without fear of being contradicted, that a lot of what is happening will go unreported. Or even if it's reported, it will be massaged to maintain this facade that our government and our president is in control. In a certain sense, that is all that we need to say about the public effort so far. If we want to get out of this situation, it requires, first of all, going back to basics. Adopting a truly national perspective in addressing a phenomena that as a country we have never witnessed. The last time globally there was anything on this kind of scale, it's close to, but it's more than 100 years ago. The 1918 so-called Spanish flu. Okay. Then there was a system of public health controlled by the colonial government. Okay. Lots of people died. I think about 100,000 in the then Gold Coast. At that time we had a population of about under 4 million. If you are going to translate it into today's situation, then you're talking about maybe 1 million deaths. Okay. Now, the evidence suggests that for one reason or the other, maybe the disease has not been as virulent here in the tropics as it has been in the temperate areas. That's what the evidence seems to suggest. But given the fact of what we know about the massaging and our assessment that really what is coming to the public space is only a tiny fraction of what is really occurring, one cannot even hold on to that thesis. Okay? And if you are going to go about it in the kind of I'm looking for the right words. But let's say if you are going to go about it, I'm going to move from the unserious way in which we are dealing with it into one that brings all our faculties, our thinking faculties, all our resources of knowledge in the various areas of public management that is necessary to confront this matter. It requires a fresh approach. Unfortunately, given the character of our president, I don't think that will happen. It requires, first of all, an admission of failure. That will not happen. It requires a new approach in terms of the head organization that is tasked with dealing with this. That requires coordination across many sectors. That would necessarily involve people who have been described as naysayers, opponents in the past. Not to offend Christians, it would be like asking for the second coming of Christ. It's not about to happen soon. What do citizens do in this kind of situation? Fortunately, I don't have many suggestions. In a certain sense, I don't know who it was who coined the statement that elections have consequences. This is the government, and this is the president we have elected to have. So unfortunately, there isn't much we can do about that, short of changing him by means which are not constitutional. But that doesn't guarantee that beyond that, things will be done much better and much differently. Okay. So I think that nationally, first of all, we need to come to this realization that this is the situation we are in. Okay. And it's interesting that this is happening. You have the conjunction of the business of vetting retreats in Parliament. Many of the guys who are coming are either previously serving in the same capacity, or they've certainly been deputies and they've been in the mix, so to speak. And one of the things that is playing up, although it's early days yet, is that people are being invasive. People are giving answers that don't make sense. But that is all throwing up the fact that this is the government of our president. Ministers are mere placeholders. They follow instructions. If anybody thinks that they have any autonomy, they are mistaken. So you can hear one minister about the other saying, on many matters, that the decision was not taken by me. I know nothing about this matter. Okay? Because regardless of the ceremony and the flowery language that accompanied the appointments the first time, they are mere placeholders, there to carry out the will of the president. And this president has a very simple understanding of who he is and what he's about. The presidency is essentially an entitlement. It is owed to him by virtue of his ancestry. He's enjoying himself. He will do as he says. It is that really simple. So whether it is the Minister of Health or the Minister for National Security or whatever grand title that they have, they're all in a similar situation. But in a certain sense, they and their party have contributed to this mess. Because what we really have for president is a despot. People are there to carry out his will. He owes them no explanations. And they have to go through this mill, which exposes in broad daylight the shallowness and the shabbiness of our government. And COVID is just this hopelessness writ large. I mean, the approach to COVID is this hopelessness writ large. It's no longer possible to hide it. And as the days roll on, I'm sure that there'll be a lot more evidence of the shabbiness of our entire government, if it is not already evident. That's what I'll say for now.
Doc, thank you. Thank you very much. Let me just do one message and I'll go to Mr. Pratt. I think two in one. Says if Ghanaians have been following what is happening in Uganda, they should be very worried with what is happening in Ghana today. A word to the wise. But what the DJ then goes on to say, please, does one have to pay for mortuary fee? Should they lose a family member through the virus? I think that question is being raised by the doc's comments on the issue. Mr. Pratt.
Well, last Saturday, I did say that the measures announced to fight COVID-19, especially with regards to school children. So,
okay. Mr. Pratt, give us a minute. We have to fix your mic, and then we'll be back. So we'll take a short break in order to allow for that to be done, so that Mr. Pratt can have his say on the issue of COVID-19 that we are still discussing. This is ALHAJI and ALHAJI.
He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer and the champion of liberty, of human equality. Let's salute him, fellow Ghanaians.
Hello, what are you doing Tuesday to Friday, 7:30 to 9 o'clock p.m. every day? You should be watching The Couch. I'll tell you why. On Tuesdays, we talk social issues, lifestyle, health, all those everyday issues that affect us in the big ways. Late Wednesdays are for book reviews. Thursdays are for the hard talk, those social, economic, policy-oriented, political questions that demand for the tough questions to be asked. And personality profiling Fridays, when we get to know the stories behind the winning personalities we love. Inspirational story from inspirational personalities. Hey, listen, you really cannot miss The Couch with me, Amma Pratt. Still, the only TV show with a hat.
The nation's found out, searching for Kwame Nkrumah. May God bless him, Ghana show boy, Africa's great songs.
Welcome back from that break. That short break was to enable us to fix a couple of issues here. We are back, and it's the mother of all talk shows, ALHAJI and ALHAJI. We are talking about COVID. Mr. Pratt, you have the floor.
thank you. Well, last week, I did make a statement to the effect that the measures which were being adopted to fight COVID-19, especially amongst, school children and so on, didn't make any sense at all. And to my surprise, in the course of the week, one of the newspapers decided to publish that as their lead story with a banner which suggested that I had insulted the president. Well, I still insist that these measures make no sense at all. When I say that these measures don't make any sense at all, it is not my intention to insult, but it's just to make a statement of fact that the measures don't make sense. We have decided that Parliament should be closed for 3 weeks. When we talk about Parliament, we are talking about responsible adults. We are talking about persons who are ministers, have been ministers, or have been nominated to become ministers of state. Persons in charge of the management of large sectors of the national economy and national life. We are talking about retired teachers. We are talking about lawyers. We are talking about journalists, renowned journalists and so on. And we think that we cannot allow them to congregate, because if they do congregate, they can contribute to the spread of the virus. In the same breath, we have decided that 1.5-year-olds, 2-year-olds, and 3-year-olds can congregate, and that they can follow the protocols and so on. How can this make sense? Somebody must be explaining to us how this can make sense. If adults, like parliamentarians, cannot congregate, cannot follow protocols and congregate because it will lead to the spread of the virus, how can 1-year-olds congregate? Just by following protocols, and we think that that is okay. This is absolutely senseless. It doesn't make any sense at all. Now, Sena, we know the situation in the schools in Ghana. In the course of the week, we were told that even some of the state-run schools don't have water. They don't have water. Water is so essential in the protocols. We're talking about washing of hands and so on as an essential part of the protocols. Now, if there are schools that don't have water, how do they follow the protocols? How can they follow the protocols? We also do know that there are schools in Ghana in which you have 100 pupils to one teacher, 100 students to one teacher. To what extent can one person supervise the observance of protocols of 100 children? That's next to impossible. It simply doesn't make sense to subject children to this. Then, for me, what annoys me to bits, I mean, it's so annoying, so reckless, so foolish, it's unbelievable. You know what annoys me to bits? When I hear public officials saying that, oh, we don't have many cases in the schools and therefore the children should go to school. Do you want to have many cases in the schools before you close the schools down? I would have thought that you shut down the schools in order to prevent many cases occurring. Now, you have people who claim to be thinking, you understand, who claim to be in charge of looking after children and so on, telling us that, oh, as for the children in the schools, they don't have many cases, so let them go. Let them go and do what? And get more cases? Before we wake up? I mean, what kind of stupidity is this? Absolute stupidity. And that's what they're telling us. They are telling us that there are not too many cases in the schools, so open the schools. Open the schools for what? So they can get too many cases? And we think that this is sensible. You know, I think that, look, we have come to the stage where many public officials actually assume that the Ghanaian population is made up of yo-yos. You understand? They don't credit us with any intelligence. So they talk to us anyhow. They don't care. They think that we think the way they think. And then they can tell us anything, and we will take it, and so on. I'm getting increasingly annoyed by these developments and so on. Now, all of us this morning appear to agree on one thing. The data which is being fed us is useless. Absolutely useless. Why? We have stopped doing contact tracing. We are not doing random mass testing. And we are putting figures out. What do those figures actually represent? What those figures actually represent is this, my brother. If you feel sick, if you fear that you've had the disease and you go to hospital, you are tested, you become part of the statistics. Or when you actually get the virus and you are tested, you become part of the statistics. Meanwhile, the science is teaching us that there are a lot more people who get the virus are asymptomatic. What does that mean? They don't get any signs. You understand? The virus does not manifest and so on. So the figures we are being given do not represent the actual rate of infection. So you cannot rely on this data. You cannot rely on these numbers to make sensible decisions. And that is clear. Now, we are constantly being told that government policy and so on is being led by the science. What is the science? What is the science? If we are truly being led by the science, in this situation, if we are truly being led by the science, we should be listening to the Ghana Medical Association. If we want to be led by the science, we should be listening to the Ghana Medical Association. Now, it is obvious that nobody is listening to the Ghana Medical Association. Because the Ghana Medical Association has been insisting that we should close down the schools and lock down the centers where the virus is spreading. And nobody is listening to the Ghana Medical Association. And we claim to be led by science. What science? What science are we being led by? Look, there are many, many important things that we should be considering, you understand? Today, when many countries in the world have begun vaccine programs and so on, we haven't begun a vaccine program. We haven't, okay? The science teaches us that this virus has a capacity to mutate, a fantastic capacity to mutate. And because of its fantastic capacity to mutate, the development of the vaccine is trailing behind the virus. One of the cases that we have in the course of the week is a case of South Africa. And the South African government spent enormous amounts of money importing the Oxford
AstraZeneca
vaccine, you understand? It turned out that the virus in South Africa, the type of virus which is spreading in South Africa is different from the British virus, and therefore the AstraZeneca vaccine produced by Oxford cannot deal with that. You understand? Now the South African government is having to look for other vaccines which will be suitable for the South African condition. It is even possible that by the time that they find that vaccine, the virus would have mutated again. You understand? It would have mutated again, and so on. So you have a situation where the development of the vaccine is trailing behind the virus and its capacity to mutate. Are we taking that into consideration? In any case, we have not even begun a vaccination program at all. And then, over the week, I was listening to government officials. I mean, talking all kinds of baby talk. Absolute baby talk. There was one chap who was discussing this situation on Joy FM, you know, and I listened to him very closely. And then he said that Britain has become so powerful a country now that we have to begin to re-examine our relations with Britain and so on, because they have developed this vaccine which is the cheapest in the world. And given our economic circumstances and so on, it may become important for us to depend on the British vaccine. And I said, my goodness, where is this chap coming from? Who gave this person a microphone? Why? What have we done? My brother, to start with, Britain has not developed the cheapest vaccine. The Cubans have developed a vaccine which is far, far cheaper than that developed by Britain. You understand? And in any case, the considerations for what vaccine we should use is not about cost. It's about efficacy. The South Africans went for the British vaccine. It's not working. They have to abandon it. So it's not just about cost, it's about efficacy. Well, I agree that what vaccine you get and how you get it and so on has become an aspect of international geopolitics. Now, if it has become an aspect of international geopolitics, looking at the countries which have developed the vaccine, we are told the United States of America has developed some vaccine, the Chinese have developed some vaccine, the Iranians have developed some vaccine, the Russians have developed some vaccine, and the Cubans have developed some vaccine. Ghana, where do we look to for vaccines? We didn't develop some. And I'm wondering why a country like Ghana is trailing behind a country like Cuba. And I know what I'm talking about. Cuba has been under blockade for more than 50 years, 60-year-old economic blockade. They are not allowed to buy sophisticated medical equipment from the West. Even their citizens, their remittance to their family members and so on is restricted. Cuba is under blockade. Cuba is being suffocated by US imperialism at the head of global imperialism and so on. Why? Cuba, up to today, its economy depends largely on sugarcane and tobacco and so on. Cuba is able to develop a vaccine, and Ghana, which is not under blockade, Ghana, which has gold, has diamond, has bauxite, has aluminum, has gas, has oil, also has tobacco, like Cuba. Pardon? You had the opportunity to make all your points. You understand? So Ghana, which has all this, is not able to develop a vaccine. Something must be wrong. And Dr. Percy says that what is wrong is that we don't have brains. I disagree. We do have brains. But some of our brains, especially the brains which are supposed to be formulating policy and so on, are dead brains. Or they are brains which are not being used. They are brains which are not being exercised. That's our problem. You understand? That is the problem we have. Look, everybody knew that there was going to be a second wave. The science of pandemics predicted that there was going to be a second wave. We knew it. Who didn't know that there was going to be a second wave? and we sat down and took no measures to deal with the second wave. Now the second wave has caught us, and look at us. We are being told that the strand of the virus which is spreading in Ghana now is the British strand. That's what we are being told, the British strand. Now, that is interesting. We opened our borders with the assurance that we're going to take strict measures to ensure that the disease does not spread through our airports. In fact, Ghanaians who are traveling out or traveling in have to spend as much as $150 to be able to get tested and so on. Now, in spite of all those measures, the British strand is spreading in Ghana. How did it get here? If the measures we have instituted in our airports are working, if they are effective, how did the British strand get here? Somebody must be telling us this. How did the British strand get here and is spreading so fast? And we are told that that strand spreads faster and kills faster. How did it get here? Somebody is playing games with us. Either the tests are not effective, or if they are effective, we are not doing the test properly. And indeed, there's some evidence that some of the results have been faked and so on. Something is wrong. And what is wrong? Somebody must be accountable for what is wrong. If the British strand is what is killing us, we ought to be worried. Now look, I am very deeply worried, okay? Because every day, I'm losing friends, I'm losing relatives, and I'm not the only one. Before, when they told us that 100 people have got the disease and so on, we couldn't even imagine who those people were. Today we all know our brothers are dying, our sisters are dying, our relatives are dying. In one family, the father died, the mother died, the daughter died, and the son died. In one family, in 1 week. This is how bad the situation is. Amongst us here today, Dr. Percy has just lost a relative. I've lost a brother. I'm sure all of you know people who have died as a result of COVID-19. And we are sitting down and taking this recklessness. What is this? Why? My very good friend, Cynthia Bafuboni, has died. Cynthia Bafuboni has died. He has died from COVID-19. And you know many others who are dying and so on. And we are sitting down and allowing people to play games with our lives and so on. This cannot be tolerated for too long. It cannot be tolerated for too long. The other day, I was having a conversation with some of my friends and so on. And some of them were talking like the authorities. Some of my friends were talking like the authorities, saying that children have been out of school for too long, the children need to learn, and therefore if you open the schools, it makes a lot of sense and so on. And I said, what would you have? Would you have illiterate sons or would you have dead sons? That's the choice facing us. To either have illiterate sons or to have sons in the coffin. You want your sons in the coffin or you want them out of the coffin and illiterate? Because illiteracy can be cured. If our children today are not able to learn ABC and then when they go to the nations, what do they learn after all? All these British rhymes and European rhymes and so on, that's what they learn. If they don't learn that today, they stay alive. Next year, can't you teach them those rhymes? Why do we want to kill them? I am completely disgusted by the developments around us today. And Sena, we have announced measures. one of the measures we have announced is that this pandemic is so serious and so on, and that we want to curb it. So we have announced that there will be no funerals, no public funerals, and that all funerals should be private funerals, limited to only 25 people. Is that not what we have announced? But we have opened the churches. The churches are open. The churches are open. So you can go to the church and have 500 people, 400 people, 300 people in the church. Does it make sense? What is the sense in this? The same funeral. You say we should have private funerals. It should be limited to 25 people. But if I take my dead body into the church, I can have 500 people. Does this make sense? What is wrong with us? In the course of the week, whilst you're talking about the need to improve hospital facilities and so on, I saw some news item, and it made me so damn angry. Do you know we have appointed a new board person, a new chairperson to handle the construction of the cathedral? This week, in the midst of the pandemic, when medical personnel are telling us that they don't have enough PPEs, when they are telling us that the facilities for handling COVID-19 cases are full and so on, we have appointed a new board chair for the cathedral. What is wrong with our leaders? Master, somebody should tell me what is wrong with our leaders. Huh? We are still building, focusing attention on building a cathedral. Why? I spoke to one of the medical officers in charge of the management of COVID-19 in the Rich Hospital. And he told me, on this very channel, he told me that the whole Rich Hospital, regional hospital for Greater Accra with a population of more than 4 million people, they have only 36 dedicated beds. 36 beds for the treatment of COVID-19. 36 beds. Can you believe it? Look, the Ghana Medical Association has issued a statement indicating that all of our hospitals are full. There's no space anymore. This young doctor that I interviewed last week told me that one of the biggest problems they have is that they don't have a dedicated outpatients department for COVID-19 cases. And I said, what would it take to have a dedicated outpatients department for COVID-19? Tents. Ordinary tents. We don't have to build concrete structures to create an OPD. Tents. How can the Rich Hospital be assisted to erect tents, just to erect tents, ordinary tents, to serve as an outpatients department specially dedicated to COVID-19? We say the hospitals are full. There's no space to handle COVID-19 cases. I hope that all of you saw the air-conditioned tents which were used for the funeral of the former president, His Excellency Jerry John Rawlings. These air-conditioned tents are available. We can erect the tents on parks, on stadia, in open places, and use them to treat COVID-19 cases. Tents. Even China employed tents in the treatment of COVID-19 cases. Ghanaian officials are waiting to build skyscrapers. They are waiting to build skyscrapers before we cater for COVID-19 cases. When we can use tents, common sense tells us that in this emergency, we can use tents. I can't believe what is happening. I listened to the last Fellow Ghanaians episode. The last episode of Fellow Ghanaians. I listened to it. And you know what scandalized me the most? Our president, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, the President of the Republic, and he says, hey, we have to take matters into our own hands. Take matters into our own hands? If we have to take matters into our own hands, why do we have a government? Why do we have a president? Why do we have a minister for health, for God's sake, if we have to take matters into our own hands? I am disappointed, very, very highly disappointed in how we are handling this COVID-19, you know, the spread of COVID-19. And I do hope that all of us, as Ghanaian people, especially the Ghana Medical Association and allied institutions, would have the courage, and the commitment to public good to be able to speak out loudly and get things changed now. Because if we don't speak out loudly and insist on change, my brothers and sisters, the situation in Brazil, the situation in the United States of America and elsewhere may look like child's play. They will really look like child's play if we continue on this trajectory. I'm alarmed, I'm ashamed, and I'm worried.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Pratt. Dr. Percy.
This is the final point that Mr. Pratt made, speaking about the Ghana Medical Association summoning up courage. They can't do so, because from the get-go, they were complicit in the business of massaging the data. The leadership of the GMA was complicit from the very beginning in bringing us to where we are here now. That's why they cannot, in all honesty, in all sincerity, stand up. That's all I'll say for now.
Thank you. Just a few of your messages. If you're just joining us, we're just discussing COVID-19 from the perspective of the fact that Parliament has shut down, but schools are still reopening. The GMA is actually joining several other people to call for the closure of schools, especially those that involve very children at very, very young ages. And I'll be doing a couple of your messages before we move on to the discussion on the vetting, because that's attracting a lot of attention. I'll be starting with Comrade Mutala. Let me just do, this one is from Wudedu Jesus. Our politicians are worshipped because most people don't understand that they are actually there to serve us and not the other way around. Where in the developed countries are they referred to as honorables? They come begging for votes only to show and display their arrogance and impunity, with no one daring to challenge them if you want to stay alive. Then he continues to say, I've lost 2 friends who are brothers in Ghana only last week. That's coming from Wood Eduje. A few more of your messages on our Facebook platform. This one is from Sapiagbo, who says, Dr. Percy, well said so far. I admire your courage to say it as it is. Indeed, this illegitimate president is a despot. Unfortunately, it's going to be a yeoman's job to remove him constitutionally. Agugajon is saying good morning to us and the panelists. Ghana, it was as a nation, is no more a state and its institutions, but enterprise by a Akufo-Addo-led group of people. The impunity at the beginning of January 2017, they institutionalized the executive and independent states institutions through the back door in their favor politically, in correct abortion of the constitutional democracy. Something is getting out of hand and must be taken seriously. A few more of your message. Peter Smith says, just a common COVID test MP can't do in their houses. What a country. It's a shame. As an ordinary person in UK, I can do those tests in the house. And to us, Sena, we are sitting down because as soon as you talk, it is NDC. Oh, it is MPP. So the stupidity goes on as the COVID rages on. You say, Nalamle or Datalamte says, okay, you're asking me to ask something else. The Lala Mamwako is saying good morning. The government of the day is just diverting attention by sponsoring noise-making journalists and radio and television stations to blow hot air with this COVID-19 issue and doing other useless things at our blind side. During the flood registration exhibition elections, the government of Ghana forgot all about COVID-19. So why now? They're using COVID-19 to cover up and playing political games with us. Thank you for that message. Unfortunately, those who have lost family members, relatives to COVID will sincerely disagree with you. And we'll continue to talk about this topic until something is done about it. Well, we'll move on to the issue of the vetting. And then I'll start with Comrade Ibrahim Mutala Mohammed. I recall, I think it was after he was sworn, they were sworn in. He was on ALHAJI and ALHAJI that weekend. And then he was the one who was saying that he named the person as being responsible for military marching into parliament. That person was under vetting this week. He says no, he didn't. In fact, he hasn't spoken to him in a very long time. Correct. On the issue of the vetting.
I don't even know where I should start, but I think that I would leave Honorable Nitiwol's statement, and in reaction to it at the latter part of it, I want to look at the entire vetting. I think that in as much as there have been contending view or positions by members of the NDC, some have argued that the NDC, since we are challenging the fraudulently declared elections, presidential elections results in the court, we didn't need to participate in the vetting of the ministers appointed by a president we deemed to have been fraudulently declared. And there's no question at all about the fact that Mr. Nanado never won the elections. Jean Mensah, who happened to be a family member of the wife of the First Lady, fraudulently declared the results of the elections in his favor. So there are some NDC members who have argued that NDC didn't need to participate in the elections, in the vetting of the appointees. But others have also argued, given justifications why the NDC should participate in this. And I tend to agree with the position that the NDC should participate in this, because failure to participate in it would mean that the MPP will constitute their own vetting committee to pass the members of, the nominees as appointed by Mr. Nana Addo. To that extent, since we do not know what the outcome of the Supreme Court case is going to be, it is appropriate that we participate in it, if not for NDC, but for this country, because you should not just have anybody who would put himself for appointment, having a pass without proper scrutiny to, be a minister in this country, should the Supreme Court rule in the favor of the NPP. So that is why I think that it is justified that we participate in it. And again, it is a constitutional requirement, and as also supported by the standing orders of Parliament, that it is the legislative arm that does the approval of the appointees of the president. Because of this idea of separation of powers, the president cannot just appoint his own ministers and they start working. They would have to be approved by another arm of government, in this case, the legislative arm. Parliament authority to vet and approve or otherwise of appointees is also governed by the standing orders of Parliament. Mind you, in Parliament we work with three very important things. One, we work with the Constitution of the Republic. Two, the standing orders, and sometimes conventions. But what is critical and most important is the Constitution and the standing orders. There is a criteria through which membership of various committees, either standing committees or ad hoc committees, are constituted, or select committees are constituted. And if you look at the calculation, we have never had such a representation in the appointment committee as we are experiencing today. Because per the calculation, NDC and MPP have equal numbers. We all have 137 each, even though we still strongly contest the numbers we have, because we feel that there are about 4 or 5 constituencies the NDC outrightly won, but Jin Mensa fraudulently declared those constituencies for the MPP. And these are issues that some of them are still being challenged in court through petitions. But I'm going to work with, or make this analysis based on the numbers that we each have. 137 with an independent member of parliament. That independent member of parliament doesn't add up to the MPP number, giving them 138, and this must be made very clear. The independent member of parliament chose to sit with the NPP and in voting. So if we want to look at MPP strictly speaking, they have 137, they don't have 138, except that the independent member is. And that is why the Speaker, in making a ruling and determination as to which constitute majority and minority, he stated emphatically there isn't majority, there isn't minority, except that there is a majority group, because the independent member has chosen to sit with the NPP, making the number 130. That is how he described them. So recently, you realize that they describe Honorable Haruna as minority leader, Honorable Lawrence Adai, Che Mensa Bonsu as the majority leader, just because of the numbers that have been added. So if you look at the calculation that is being done, the appointment committee is made up of 26 members. So you would have 13. I remember when they presented their report after they constituted the number, the MPP was arguing that they should have more numbers because of the independent. And it was made very clear to them that they didn't have proper appreciation of the Constitution and the standing orders. And if they did, they wouldn't be making the kind of arguments they were making. So we have 13. Per the standing orders, the first deputy speaker is an automatic member of the appointment committee, and he's an automatic chair of the appointment committee. And if you look at the appointment committee, you look at even parliament. When a member of parliament, in this case the first deputy speaker, chairs the appointment committee, he loses his original right to vote. He only has a custom vote. Custom vote is that when there is a tie, then he can then exercise the right to vote. But when there is no tie, and as the chair of the appointment committee, he doesn't vote. So if NDC has 13 and MPP has 13, and the MPP 13 includes Owusu, the first deputy speaker who chairs the committee, when it comes to voting, he won't vote. And in that sense, the MPP number will be reduced to 12, and the NDC number will still be 13. So it is obvious that the NDC is at the driving seat in determining who becomes a minister. But there are also some issues. Now, if you look at since 1992, there have always been consensus when it comes to appointment. People will agree, and then they look at some of the challenges. They usually don't vote, because Parliament is supposed to be building consensus. But of course, you build consensus with people who are willing and prepared to build consensus, not with dishonest people who have demonstrated that through their leadership in Parliament. Now, I remember that my former boss, Dr. Spielgabra, was not appointed, I think, after the 1992 elections. And the reason was that he didn't vote in Ghana. And therefore, the appointment committee, for one reason or the other, rejected his appointment. I think there was another appointment which was rejected. If I remember in the course of the discussion, I'll raise it. Now, with the numbers we have, the NDC at the driving seat, but when at the appointment committee, a member or appointee is approved, then the report of the committee will then be brought to the plenary, that is the entire house. Usually, when the appointment committee approves the appointment of a member, at the plenary is just a procedure. You would look at the issues, debate, and then just approve. Now, if someone assuming at the appointment committee, one thing that the MPB is failing to realize, I know that there have been several moves they are making, sometimes using the Kelly GVG to see if they can get a person like Estela and others to be approved, or the Minister of Finance. There have been several moves. No one should doubt the integrity and the credibility of the leadership of Parliament and the members of the appointment committee. I have read a lot of stories, and sometimes extremely annoying, where people, particularly NDC people, are impugning certain motive. The members of the NDC side of the committee are people with integrity, and they are people who are there to serve the interests of not just the NDC but Ghana. And if you observe the kind of questions that are asked, it is very clear that they mean business, and they wouldn't just allow anybody to go through. If someone comes and discharges himself very well, there wouldn't be any reason why such a person should not be approved. You must discharge yourself. Pertinent questions would have to be asked. If you come and you are being evasive, outright lying like some of them have demonstrated, there can't be any justification why you should be approved. Now, even if a person is approved at the committee level and one person disagrees, as a member of the appointment committee, it has to be brought to the House for the House to take a decision. Read the standing orders. One person. So assuming that all the NDC members and the MPP members have all agreed, let's approve this person, and one person says that I disagree with that approval, it has to be brought to the main house. I am aware that Mr. Nanado is dreading that if the Minister for Finance designate doesn't get approval at the committee level, when they bring him to the plenary, NPP members themselves will vote against him. So they are doing everything possible to ensure that he gets the approval at the plenary. With all the mess that is created in the banking sector, with all the mess that is created by his own appointees in the fight against COVID as demonstrated, and also in the media, the closure of certain radio stations unjustifiably. I can determine for the appointment committee, but I expect the appointment committee, and I have no doubt in mind, they will do what is fair, what is right, for the good end of this country and the progress of our democracy. Sena, you find some of them, they sit there outright lying to the people of this country. I can't fathom why a Minister for Health, who was in charge of the fight against COVID-19, and the loans that we contracted using COVID-19 as a justification in sourcing those loans, and the procedure mechanisms that we couch out in fighting against COVID-19, none of such processes or procedures escaped the Minister for Health. The extent to which the controversy that came with the testing of COVID-19 at the airport, the minister could not feign innocence. And remember, that was precisely what he did. I mean, if you have a minister who didn't know what was going on at the airport, then he is not fit to be a Minister of Health. I remember when he was put, he then admitted and said that they were even operating illegally. For how many months? And since when has he realized that they were operating illegally, defrauding the people of this country? I will not talk about the accountability. I have given the figures what, in my opinion, I expected them to have indeed, raised within the period of time, taking 2,000, minimum traffic at the airport, multiplying that by $150 gives you $300,000 a day. You multiply the $300,000 by 30, you get $9 million a day, and that no one has been able to account to the people of this country. So it is shocking that he would say that he was not aware. He was outrightly lying to the people of this country. You have my good friend Napo, by the way, who is being nurtured by the Nanado's faction to run with Dr. Baumia in 2024. That's a fact. Well, it could be a rumor to back. Per my information, Sena Comrade, is a fact. That is what they are doing. They are abandoning the Alan Chirmantin because they still want to get the Asante vote. And what they are doing now is that let's crop up Napo so that he can run with Dr. Baumia to continue perpetrating the fraud that Danado and his clique are perpetrating on the people of this country. They have abandoned Ken Oforiatta running with Dr. Baumia. Their new candidate now is Napo and Dr. Baumia, so that they can continue the family looting of Nana Addo, using Bawumia as a charade of some semblance of sincere and honest. By the way, he himself is not truthful. So clearly it's the same, robbery that they are going to engage with the people of this country. You remember Napu, my good friend, who said that President Mahama bars people to go to the Independence Square during the placement of students. His demeanor, he was very condescending when he appeared before the committee and feigned an apology to President Mahama and Professor Jean Nana. I think that if he wants to apologize, it must be seen to be an honest and sincere apology. Let me come to Honorable Nitowol. I think that he lied under oath and he ought not be approved. And I'm sorry I have to be saying this about my brother. I didn't watch that part of his vetting, just a bit of it. But my understanding and the information I got is that he said that for a very long time he hasn't spoken with me, isn't it?
In fact, I have a quote I could read to you.
Yes.
On what exactly he said.
Yeah.
He said, "It is not a true story. I did not have a capacity to move the military. Murtala is my friend, and he knows. I have not spoken to him for a long time. I didn't go to any place. I only went to urinate and came back. I was sitting with him, an independent candidate. But the military, like I said, are the most professional."
That is an absolute just last week. And if Honorable Nitowol is watching this program, just last week, I was with him at the coffee shop of Parliament. We sat together with other MPs. I bought tea. He was also taking his tea there just last week. For him, no, actually. The thing is that tea was not offered by Jean Mensa. I was there. In fact, the MP for Sabuba was there. I was with him with other colleague members of Parliament. And in fact, the conversations we had centered around he calling the military into the chamber. Just last week, before Parliament rules, I think Parliament, the suspension was on Friday? Right? No, on...
That should be Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Yeah, before.
And I think the day Parliament was suspended, as we were waiting for the Speaker, at that time he was in conclave with the leadership of both the NDC and the MPP. We had lengthy discussion on this very matter. And I remember I even accused him publicly. I said, you, Honorable Nitowol, you denied you never invited the military into the chamber when you know too well that you invited them. And he said, if I go anywhere they ask me, I'll tell them you invited them. Honorable Nitowol Hifi. So he lied under oath. For him to say that for a very long time we haven't spoken, I think it is justified why some of us insisted we don't want to be addressed as that so-called honorable, because I expect an honorable member to be absolutely honorable, not an honorable member who would lie because he wants to be appointed a minister. So that is first statement. So he lied under oath. I was with him. There were other members of Parliament who were present with me at that particular place. So for him to say that he hasn't spoken with me for a very long time. 2, I made the allegation that he brought the military into the chamber on the very day we elected the Speaker. And if you remember, immediately after the elections, I granted an interview, specifically I think to Joy TV. And I made that statement and insisted that there should be thorough investigation into the matter. When we had the struggle, and I remember that specific incident, they wanted to put the ballot box in front of the maze. And then the ballot booths, 2 ballot booths were placed at where the Speaker sits, behind where the Speaker sits. So the NDC, when you go and vote, you come and put MPP. When you vote, you come and put it in front of the maze. And why they were doing that was that if a person gets into the ballot box and you vote, the Deputy Chief Whip, my good brother, the MP for Tolang, was placed just close to the ballot booth. So when you vote, you are coming out, you show it to him before you come and put it in the ballot box. So we insisted that shouldn't happen. And I remember we insisted that they should take the ballot box and put it between the two ballot booths, so that when you go and just vote, you put it there. When we're having the struggle, then Honorable Chairman Sabunsu told me, look, Honorable John Ginapo was standing, Honorable Edward Bawa was standing. He said that if it means we bring in even security, military men into the chamber, will do that. And I said, bring them. Then Honorable Nitul walked to him and told me that there are military and policemen out there. We will call them to come in here. Sena, I want you to listen very carefully. And he himself later confirmed this statement. And I know you have that statement. He said that if we have military and policemen around, we will bring them in. And I told him, bring entire military garrison here, we will confront them. And that's the reason why when the military entered, I rushed at them first, because I knew where and why, the circumstances under which they came in there. He removed phone and made a call. I was there. So when the military came in, I went to him. And I said, Honorable Nitul, I want you to remember that 5 years ago, I was a deputy minister and a member of parliament. Power is transient, it's not permanent. He never uttered a word. So for him to deny that he brought them for me, it is shocking. Meanwhile, subsequently, I think about less than a week after we elected the speaker, he granted an interview, and I would love that you read it, and admitted that yes, he had conversations with me. He only said that there were military and policemen around, but he didn't authorize their invasion of parliament. Now, if he admitted and made that statement to the people of this country through the media, why is it that when he appeared before the appointment committee, he denied that he ever spoke, and that he only went out to Wiwi and then came back? He never had a word with me. Clearly, it is a manifestation of the kind of leadership we have in this country, sadly, that people will come, swear oath, and lie under oath, and that is perjury.
Okay.
And I think that, to be very honest, Parliament should do something about this. You have again.
Oh, I have to leave you here because I apologize. I don't have the luxury of time.
No problem.
Thank you very much. Let me just do a message and I'll go to Jifa. This one is from Oli Flavor, who says a good morning to me, and also to Comrade Mutala, and says I've been consistent with the fact that Nanado has assembled the most sophisticated syndicate of this country has ever seen, known, and calls it a government. Napo has swallowed his false accusation against JM that he bars parents to independence but to sabotage free SHS. Napo has admitted he didn't have any evidence against JM till date. Again, dentist Matthew Opoku Prempe just apologized to Professor Nana Opoku for peddling lies and harsh words against her. You see these crooks, you say. Thank you very much. Jifa.
Sena. So, you just look at this veteran that I started a couple of days back. In fact, the very first day that I saw the nominations, I said, hey, once again, one of Ghana's greatest problems right now as it stands is the problem of leadership. And the very first leader we have here is Mr. Akufo-Addo, before anyone else. I mean, he's at the top. I saw the list of nominees and I was like, okay, so this man has just pushed or nominated scandal-laden human beings and honorables, or however I have to describe them, for the various positions. You're wondering what is behind it. So my first thought was, could this be a political trick where he just wants to, probably, as knowledgeable as he wants to seem to be, he just wants to clear them, but in a very smart way. So he throws them off to the wolves, and then because of their past, the works they've done in the past, I mean, they go to vetting and then they collapse, or should I say they are thrown out. That was my first instinct. But I was like, no. After this, if such an issue should happen at all, if they go for vetting and they do not pass because of the many scandals they've been involved with in their various ministries, it's going to have a very, very bad tag and toll on the president, the current government, and the NPP as a party. So why would the president do that? And then it just goes back to us thinking that, okay, he is who he is. the leadership skills are just poor. So poor, I saw the defense minister and the nominated, okay, yeah, that was a former health minister who has been nominated again, fumbling. And when your government comes to power in the very first 4 years, you are only going to say what you intend to do in your office. You have no questions to answer. Probably add up a few things. So it's quite easy. It's like, throwing promises to the whole committee to make it look juicy and promising what you're going to do, giving ideas of what you think about particular policies and issues that may have happened, or what you might do better when you come to power. But this is the case where you've already enjoyed your 4 years and you messed up. Now, answer. During the health minister's vetting, he was asked why he attended a certain party. In fact, it was put to him. I'm sure if he had the opportunity, he would have lied about it, or should I say, he would have denied it, but he couldn't deny it. He went lying and saying that the entire party consisted of just about 10 people. My goodness, just about 10 people. Notwithstanding that the actual fact was the idea of socializing when there was a lockdown. That put aside, the issue that happened at the airport, well, without a license, we had been looting people, the entire country, for months. And just like what their leader or their president would have said, I was misled or I had no idea. You see, a whole health minister said he didn't even know that this program was being run without a license. And it was coming to jump in for us to clap for him by saying that it was even through him that we got a license. We are even waiting for Ken Oforiatta, the finance minister, who everyone is, I'm sure on the day of his vetting, everyone will be seated in front of their TV, who has several cases of conflict of interest, where his companies, the enterprise insurances, the data banks, are serving as government companies in transactions, where we have banks that are for the government, where we have insurance companies that work in line with the government, or should I say, have been in line with the government for several years. We have Data Bank and Enterprise Life and other companies doing the same. Granting contracts to people without following the due process. Mr. Ken Oforiatta's issue is so... I just feel pity for the entire vetting committee and himself when it comes to that day. Recently, I heard that he has pulled Data Bank out of the Ijapa transaction as the transaction advisor for the deal. Few days to your vetting, and I wonder why you do that. So today, we'll be here, and then we are going to experience Judgment Day on earth. We have a whole minister and an MP, Hawa Kulsin, firing shots, broad daylight, during registration. She will also answer. All these people have been nominated again, and they are going. They're going to see them. How they'll embarrass themselves. And honestly, I'm really looking forward to this committee to prove themselves very well. And unfortunately for the NPP and the nominees, this particular this particular set of committees are not the one that they are used to, where they would have a very smooth passage, because the structure of the of Parliament now doesn't put anyone in a very comfortable position at all. So in other years past, during President Kufuor's time, it would have been easy that even if you are grilled at the end of the day because of partisanship, you would have, you pass through, you sail through smoothly. But this time around, it's not going to be like that. I can't just wait. Let me just give another example of, I'm giving this example because we're in the COVID era. Owusu's COVID tracker, what he did with Baumia, Dr. Baumia, this COVID tracker that was a total scam, has brought nothing, has added nothing, but rather made us lose money. We have no idea. As at now, I have no idea, unless of course anyone here will tell me that they have an idea what has befallen the COVID tracker. All these questions are waiting for them. And I mean, these scandals came, we talk about it on ALHAJI or any other political show, it goes, we talk about it, it goes, we talk about it. They are so much so that you just wonder, why these people have been nominated at all. Because with these things alone, they are not supposed to be nominated in any way. They are not even qualified. They have performed badly, horribly. This is an abysmal compilation altogether. And yet, they are the ones that we are taking forward. To do what? To kill us more. So the 4 more that we were talking about, indeed, the 4 more has come. And it was 4 more to kill us more. 4 more to continue destroying us. Sena, you don't just understand what is going on within this country. But of course, I appreciate the rate at which all these issues are being exposed. I don't think it's going to change them in any way. But at the end of the day, it is going to tell us that you are not above the law as a minister. You are not above the law. Once you are appointed, your day will come, your day of accounting will come, and this is the day. But most importantly, that day of accounting should make a change in the lives of Ghanaians. In us, I would be disappointed if Ken Ofori-Atta passes. I would be disappointed, yes, very disappointed. And look, I will tell you on record, and my big brother is here, that even there are some of the NPPs who do not want Ofori-Atta to pass through, because obviously his entire actions during his reign as finance minister was just to loot for himself and his family, and sometimes he usurp his position and enter into others' jurisdiction, like the PDS issue, like this energy issue. Is it not even a Japadio? There was another energy issue. Mary. The PDS, you see, falling even with the Japadio. This was something that was supposed to also have the Minister of Lands and Natural Resources very active. Where do you find them? And you realize all the transactions and everything related to money and whatever is within his company and within his power.
Okay.
So someone like this shouldn't have been nominated once, but now that he has been nominated, he will be grilled, and he passes, I'll be disappointed. I'll probably just lose hope for our parliament. But I also have, yes, I would lose hope for our parliament. But I also have that hope right now that once our people are in there, I'm sure they will make the right decision. Someone like Hawa Kumsin, foreign guy, I mean, we are all tough. To be a lady in politics means you are tough. So we should give that to ourselves. But when you want to prove that you are a fag, as a member of parliament, fire gunshots, your people are arrested. Within 24 hours, they are released. Nothing is done to anybody. And then there's this guy, this comedian called Funny Face, who fired gunshots some few days ago at Kaswa, was arrested and spent, I think, 2 to 48 hours in jail before he was bailed. And even his case is in court now, you understand? That's a normal person. I am totally against what he did, and of course, he deserves to be dealt with. But if someone like this is done and has even slept in prison, then why was Hawa Kumsin still roaming about that day? Okay. We have to do something. We have to, and I just, let's all have faith in our MPs to make us know the difference between having this structure of parliament.
Thank you. Thank you. Everybody seems to have their own list. Masala Kwabli in Ayawaso East constituency says Godfred Udami was asked by a black woman why he is prosecuting Inusa for Sena for asking GM to declare himself president and form a government, but left Kenny Japan off the hook for threatening to ban GM, Bevlo, and co. Godfred Udami's answer was that when Kenny Japan made that statement, he wasn't a deputy attorney general, but Godfred Udami lied. Ken Ofori-Atta Inusa for Sena made his comment on 11th December 2020 when he was still a deputy attorney general, and I think he wanted to say Kenny Japan also made that's a repetition. It says Ken also threatened JM on Wednesday, December 23rd, 2020, when he was still the deputy attorney general, by his prosecuting Inusa and not Ken. Godfred Udami lied under oath in this regard, so he must be rejected. Doc.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sena. From the outset, we must make this very clear. Ministers are extensions of the president. They express the president's will. That's the first point that has been made. At all times, they are acting at all for the president. He has delegated them. And by the structure of our governance, persons who are proposed as ministers must go through Parliament. They must be, quote unquote, vetted. But we are in a strange situation where, because of this, what I'll call a congenital defect in our constitution, the executive is also in Parliament. Parliament is supposed to be a watchdog and act as a check and control on the executive. But the executive is present in Parliament. So it is ab initio defective and undermined in that task. I haven't done a check, but I can bet that right on the appointments committee, there are persons who have been nominated.
Yes, that's factual.
It is a joke to begin with. Okay? It has brought about this phenomenon where, and because of another requirement, that the majority of, I think, members of cabinet must come from Parliament. Okay. So this makes our Parliament, by and large, defective, in my view. It acts very little as a check on the executive. But there's a difference this time around from 4 years ago. After the 2016 elections, you had an incoming MPP Nanado government with a huge parliamentary majority and a lot of goodwill. A lot of that goodwill manufactured by media that have been instrumental in the fraud that was perpetrated on the Ghanaian people that got a president elected. And then he went about through this public exercise of calling people, announcing their credentials and reasons why they are being appointed, and putting them in place. He finally ended with a record number of ministers and deputy ministers. But I repeat the point I made earlier. All those persons were essentially placeholders to do as they are told according to how the president saw things fit. Simplicity. And they've been in place for the past 4 years. For our president, the most important thing, as he went on his knees before the Ghanaian people, is Monsomenshe. Please, just give me the chance to get to the public purse. Right? He appointed his personal treasurer and his cousin to take charge of our finances. And we know for a fact that practically all the public flotations, the business of raising money, practically all of them have involved his personal interests with the data bank group. And by now, by my small calculus, they must have made billions of cedis and can guarantee that they will never go broke. And that's in the past. But to go on, we have a situation where, by and large, practically all the persons who are coming forward have been part of this gargantuan team of 125 something or so ministers. So what really is on trial? What is really on examination, by and large, is not the future of those ministries and what policies people are going to carry on going forward, but an examination of their past performance. And by logic, an examination of the performance of our president. Which is why you hear and you continue to hear people say that they don't know about this or that other matter, which, properly speaking, is under their charge. Because the least they can do, at the risk of sounding foolish, is to shield the president. Because there's one rule that you cannot break in this administration. At all times, the president must look good. And your job as a minister is to say to the Ghanaian people at every opportunity you get how blessed we are to have Nana Addo as our president. I'm sure you heard this thing repeated ad nauseum in relation to COVID, about how lucky the Ghanaian people are to have a president in the nature of Nana Addo at this time. That's your first duty as a minister. At every opportunity, you must remind the Ghanaian people how lucky we are to have for our president, Nana Addo. And then, to take care of yourself as best as you can at every opportunity, and to do as you are instructed. So where it relates to the Ghana, I think it's even criminal to call it a partnership agreement. This criminal sellout to the US about the basin rights. Or the COVID testing business scam at the airport, or whatever. Or how come troops arrived in Parliament? Because, as I hear from Kwame, he insists that they came at the invitation of Mr. Nitiwo. But that's above his pay grade. Mr. Nitiwo would never have made that call without having conferred with His Excellency the President. So on the other hand, you also hear another minister designate come and talk this nonsense about a nameless commander. Might as well told the parliamentarians that it was the Holy Ghost that called in the troops. Yeah. You sound more believable. So the simple truth is that the Ghanaian people are going to witness more painful conversations and interviews in the days ahead, where ordinarily intelligent people will come and say stupid things so that the president can be shielded. Because what is on display, what is coming out through the questioning, is the shallowness and the shabbiness, the incompetence and the corruption that has gone on over the past 4 years. Simple.
Look, unfortunately, I'd have to move on to Mr. Pratt because of time.
Well, I'm very impressed by what is happening in Parliament. You know, I mean, if you're looking at quality of vetting, I think this is one of the best that we have had in many years. At least in the last couple of days, I haven't heard any nominee being asked to sing a song from the Methodist hymn book. And all the questions have been relevant, you know, to the work that the ministers are supposed to be doing and so on. So we are all waiting to see the outcome. So far, so very good. And I'm waiting to see the outcome, you know, of the vetting process.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that was quite brief. Well, let me read a couple of your messages to end. This is from Davison. I'm happy about developments in the appointment committee. It is no longer a free and happy ride for appointees. Let's wait and see what happens to the year to appear appointees. God help Ghana. Thank you for that message. This one says a good morning. My open letter to the great NDC members of the appointment committee. Dear comrades, for the sake of we, the grassroots supporters of the party, we say reject all the appointees of Akufo-Addo. We are discriminated upon because we are NDC in our own country. We are second-class Ghanaians because we are NDC. MPs, please fight for us. Bring joy to us by rejecting all of them for the sake of those of us who died during the just ended election. Thank you, comrades, for listening to us. Okay, so Dennis Yakwiti says, if indeed Ghana is a serious country, ministers designate such as finance, defense, national security, and health at least should not be passed. Indeed, it was not only sad, despicable, enunciating by insulting, for instance, for the defense minister designate who held same position during the last election to have told Ghanaians and the world through the vetting committee of parliament that he was seeing the incidents of soldiers in Techima in December 2020 elections for the first time at the vetting. What nonsense. I really feel bad to be a Ghanaian this very moment, but we shall triumph. Thank you for that message. And this one is coming from Sterling from Enoch Villa. So greetings to you and the panelists. Can't Nanado and his government admit that they have failed abysmally and rather humble themselves to seek for interventions from the biggest opposition party, the NDC, who have a chunk of health aspect to help curb the escalating situation of COVID-19 to save precious lives? Thank you for that message. Komala Genya, joining us all the way from Abuja, says, for a health minister to lie at vetting that La Polyclinic is almost completed when the construction has not even begun shows how MPP disrespect Ghanaians. Sadly, some Ghanaians believe in these people. I guess Mr. Pratt has spoken about that a couple of times. This one is okay. This is from Udedujes. The chair of the vetting committee keeps on leading the nominees whenever they seem to be struggling with the questions. The whole vetting is a big sham and a political con to insult Ghanaians again. Let them swear by Nana Antwa and see who would dare lie. Quote, I don't regret taking Get Fund scholarship. I'll do it again if the opportunity presents itself. That's a quote from Napo. So thank you very much for those messages. Send some of them via Facebook. A big thank you to those of you who watch us via Facebook or any of the social media handles. A big thank you to the internet radio that are currently taking us, Kaba Radio. A big thank you to Adam Popa Media. A big thank you to, okay, so we are live on Ahunto 92.3 FM, also online, that's radio streaming, and on Radio Gold 90.5 FM. A big thank you to Ahunto 92.3 on the traditional frequency within Accra. That's how you listen to us. A big thank you to our several affiliates across the country. A big thank you specifically to Radio Kitan, who I got to know in Sabuba that they are also picking us live. Benya and Cape FM in the central region. A big thank you. A bigger thank you to every one of you who did the listening and watched us today live on Pan-African television. We salute our followers on Pan-African television, especially in the northern part of the country. My name is Sena Nombo. You heard Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jr., who is managing editor of the Inside newspaper, FSCC, regularly nowadays. A big thank you to him for always sharing his insight with us. We're privileged to have Dr. David Percy, a student of history and politics, in the studio with us today. Jifar Tega is a member of the communications team of the National Democratic Congress. Grace us with a Valentine look that comes off tomorrow. And then, of course, comrade Ibrahim Murtala Mohammed, a very good friend to the show, member of Parliament for Tamale Central. Wonderful to have him back in Parliament, by the way. We are back next week in another edition of the show. But in the meantime, let me say happy birthday to Tony Goodman, who was at one point in time the spokesperson for the Health Ministry, I think during the Mills and John Dramani Mahama eras. Happy birthday to you. Happy belated birthday to Francis Xavier Susu. And happy wedding anniversary to, I don't know if I'm allowed to say Mr. and Mrs. Trevor, but I've already said it. And a good morning, a very good afternoon to Mr. and Mrs. Abraham and Mabel Kofi of Mabel Restaurants. Enjoy the rest of your day. And a big thank you to Tijani for the production and the rest of the crew here at Pan-African Television. We are back same time next week with another edition of the Mother World Talk Shows, ALHAJI and ALHAJI.
He has labored, he has suffered